Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We've got Savan Kapoor with us here today. Just starting with a brief introduction. Savan started his career in the year 2000, and in 8 short years, he climbed up the career ladder to the position of CEO of Sutton and Maxwell of the Palm Bay International Group, the largest wine and spirits import company in the US. In 2013, he returned home to the motherland, India, where he took over as the third generation CEO of his family business, Kapoor Lampshade Company, where he built the project lighting division. His projects include Mumbai Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminal 2 Airport, Rashtrapati Bhavan, Prime Minister's Office, amongst many others notable associations. While a CEO position would be sufficient for most, it wasn't for him. Having led an accelerated corporate career with a 9 figure salary, Savan understands the science of building exceptional careers. And therefore, he also started a career coaching service called Dire to Hire and has coached over 2 lakh working professionals, multiplied and watched 2 lakh multiple professionals multiply their paychecks, get their dream jobs, target any job, and secure the offer while accelerating their climb up the career ladder and differentiating themselves in their job search and application journey. Easy to say, he's a revolutionary. He's insightful and he's always focused on the results of his students. He serves as the brand ambassador for Khushi, an NGO run by Sri Kapil Dev, ex-captain of the Indian cricket team. He's an outstanding Achievement Award winning CEO and recently also won Outstanding Leadership Award by the World Education Conference. He has read over 3,000 plus books and is driven by seeing others succeed. Savan was honored with the most admired global Indians in 2023 distinction as well, and where he joins the likes of boxers Mary Kom, industrialist Niranjan Hiranandani, actor Sonu Sood, amongst others. He lives with his wife and 2 children in Chennai. So if you want to make a meaningful difference to your salary, your professional satisfaction, your growth opportunities in your work-life balance, settle in today as we are going into an exciting discussion with Savan himself. So today, as part of Engineers Week at Naukri.com, he's here to talk about how to navigate through the tough job market and strategies to build an exceptional career. Savan, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Many from the audience here are here for your insights on building their CVs and strategies of building a career, which is dynamic.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. And it's wonderful to be here. I think this is our second opportunity to connect with Naukri.com, and we really appreciate it.
Great. So without further ado, actually, we'll go into the burning questions so that we give the most to our audience that's present here today. So I think the starting point should be quite basic. So what would you say are some key strategies for crafting a standout CV or a resume that effectively grabs the attention of potential employers, especially in a competitive field like engineering?
Well, I would say that first and foremost, it is very important to understand what is the purpose of a CV or a resume. And a lot of people don't get that right. And, the human ego is designed in a manner where it likes to speak about itself. So, people fill it with a tremendous amount of detail and they go overboard in how wonderful they are and how they are the solutions to every business's problem. And I think that is what needs a little bit of a check, because companies will relate with you for their own problems and not for your greatness. You cannot leave the burden of translation with regard to how your greatness can help them solve their issues and capitalize on the opportunities in front of them onto them. So, instead of thinking of a CV as an opportunity to blow your own trumpet, I think it has to be looked at from what we call an inbound approach. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the organization and market your skills, your talents, your experiences, your education, your knowledge, and even your personal qualities in a manner that they want to listen to. And that is by keeping the focus on the challenges and the opportunities that the organization is facing. So this is one aspect that is very important. The second thing is people, again, because they like talking about themselves, they land up making a CV that is so extensive please understand that today for any meaningful position, there's going to be, maybe a couple hundred applications. And so the timing of when you apply is also important. The earlier you apply, the better it will be in terms of, the chances that your application and candidature will be considered. The other thing that you have to note here is that a CV does not need to be 3, 4, 5, 6 pages long. I work with people, and what we create is a power format resume. And what this does is it really attends to the purpose of a resume, which is one, to get you invited to the interview, and two, then to lead to a very healthy discussion and how you can help them. For those purposes, try to keep your CV to one page. Now, I've worked with senior professionals who have 40 years of experience, and they worked across 10, 12 different companies. If they can get it down to one page, then I can tell you that the majority of candidates and job seekers and working professionals in the market can also endeavor to get it down to one page. And the beauty of this CV is that there have been people who will prioritize a quantity over quality type of search effort, where they are blindly applying to many, many organizations. That's literally like trying to throw the dart on the dartboard in the dark. That doesn't really work. Quantity here is not necessarily better. So a CV must be customized to the opportunity. And secondly, it's very important that you get it down to the right length, so that there is an active discussion that takes place. I've had students who have tried for months at end and not received an interview call, and then they adopted this CV. And when they adopted this CV, they've landed up getting 20 interview calls within a week. So I think these are some of the things that candidates need to really keep in mind, when they are designing their CV.
That's great. That makes it really, that's really interesting to know that actually condensing what you have done so far actually could help you move forward rather than elaborating it to a point where it's 4 or 5 pages. So that's really interesting for us to know. And
Yeah.
while these are the things that you get right, I think my next question would be, what are some common mistakes that engineers often make on their resume, and how can they avoid these pitfalls to make their CVs or resumes more compelling?
You know, a lot of people in different functional areas make this mistake, and it certainly applies fair and square to engineers. Because engineering is largely a technical role, they are very vertical oriented. So if you're a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer or a software engineer, you're going to be talking about the technical aspects of what you have done. And one of the problems in the formal system of education, at least in school or college, is that they don't help take such functional knowledge and connect it to the financial performance of the organization. See, a very simple example is that if somebody visits you at your office and you offer them a cup of tea, even that carries a financial implication. There is a cup that you have sourced. There is, somebody has brewed the tea. There is a pantry or a kitchen where this is being done. There is gas, there is sugar, milk, RO water. Even if you have a tea machine in your office, or even if you bought the tea from, the corner tea stall, there is a financial cost to it. And that is the responsibility of everybody in the company, not just the finance and the accounts department, but every department is connected to it, especially a department as core as engineering, which is related to production, and the actual the value proposition that the organization creates comes to life through these people. They are a very core part of operations. So one of the problems that I see that such people make is that they focus very much on the technical aspects of what they have done. Now, I'm not trying to say that that is not important. Of course, competence for the position that you are interviewing is going to be something that is going to be thoroughly checked. But beyond this, functional technical competence, they also need to showcase some of the other skills, their management skills, their time organizational skills, their ability to multitask, their ability to manage other people, their communication abilities. These are all transferable skills. So these are skills that are going to go across organizations. So it is very critical that all of this also get talked about, and in specific, how their job connects to the financial statements of the company. That is essential, because an engineer who is working with the big picture in mind, how their activities, their tasks, their projects are going to increase or decrease efficiency and cost, or help engineer a better product that is going to be able to sell at a premium. So understanding that connection is going to be very, very critical. And a lot of people here are, so domain focused that they forget to market that sufficiently or market that attractively. And again, like I was saying earlier, I think that is one of the problems with the formal system of education, because we are so domain focused, and it is so much of I'd like to use the word ruttification in how they go through. There's so much memorization in how they go through learning their subject matter expertise, that this is a very common error that people make. And the beauty of this is that if you understand how to, include those aspects into your resume, then what will happen is you will immediately start standing out. So quantifying the value that you brought, understanding the strategic objective for which that engineer was hired, okay, and the kind of impact that they were able to create in previous roles, all of that has to be marketed, and it has to be marketed using that inbound approach, where it is very attractive to an organization, because it makes it easier for that organization to pull the trigger and hire you. The connection, you're not leaving that burden of translation onto them, where they have to figure out, and they're looking at 150, 200 candidates. So it's a lot for an HR department to have to do that level of investigation for each individual that has come up. If you can help make their life easier from this perspective, then they know that you are the kind of person who is able to step into their shoes and look at the picture from their angle.
That's really interesting. So it almost suggests that building domain knowledge is great, but what's even better is that to build a successful career in engineering, it involves a lot of strategic moves and long-term planning, and being able to have transferable skills between one job to the other. So could you share some insights on how engineers can proactively accelerate their career trajectory, starting from the early stages of their professional journey, using exactly this vision towards their career, where they're planning strategies on how they can have transferable skills? And really, if you could elaborate on what would be some proactive ways to do that, that would be really helpful.
I think fundamentally, you have to understand how hard skills come to life and how soft skills come to life. So the education system does a very good job of giving us that hard subject matter expertise, the domain knowledge, if you will. So a civil engineer will go through years of curriculum to be really, a master of their craft when they're coming out, because they understand the subject of civil engineering. Or a software engineer knows multiple languages, they know how to write code. A mechanical engineer understands, the dynamics of what is going to go into a machine or a product or whatever it is that they are working on. But soft skills is not addressed nearly as well or as deeply by the formal system of education. And that is what is going to help you monetize the hard skills that you have, because that is only going to come to life through interaction with people. So ultimately, how you handle people and situations is going to be a bigger predictor of your overall career trajectory than just the domain knowledge that you carry. How can engineers do this better? I think fundamentally they have to understand that, over the course of a full career, so if a person has a 30 to 40-year career, let's say you start working, right after you've come out of higher education at the age of 20, 21, and you're going to work till retirement age, which is 60, you're going to have a, 40-year career. And there are certain distinct stages in your career. All right. So it's very important to be cognizant and to be recognizing of what these stages in your career are. Now, when we come out of higher education, or that final year before we step out into the real world, we are in what is known as the aspiration stage. That is where we should be able to explore what it is that we really want to do. And there is a certain amount of personal development that should have taken place up until that point for us to make an appropriate choice, because you're going to spend the majority of your waking hours in the office engaging with what is going to earn an economic livelihood for you. But unfortunately, that level of personal development does not take place for the majority. So they land up choosing their career based on what is hot and what is going to pay the most, or some kind of pressure, whether it is parental pressure or societal pressure or even peer pressure. And that is where they get into what is known as a misaligned career. 10 years into their career, they realize this is not really their true calling. But if they play the game right there, then they will get into the second stage, which is the promise stage of their career. Now, that is when you're stepping into your first job. So, the promise of your potential is driving your value. Your bag of experience is very light, but the bag of the promise that you represent in what you will be able to achieve, that is what you have utilized to get that job. Somebody's taking a risk on you, somebody's taking a bet on you because of the manner in which you have interacted with them, you've impressed them. And again, you're not trying to be impressive. You have to embody that being impressive, because that sincerity and that merit should shine through. It shouldn't just be that you've done all of this for the sake of that application. You should have done all of that because it truly resonates with you. And this is what HR and hiring managers will be able to differentiate and pick up really well, because this is what they do for a living. So if you play the game correctly in that promise stage, and the mandate of that stage is that you have to keep your mouth closed and you have to keep your eyes and your ears open, which can be a challenge sometimes for younger folks. Because especially when they get into the job, they really want to prove that they were the right hire. They want to contribute, and that is where they can land up making such a mistake. So you should learn through deep observation, and you should ask a lot of questions. And if you get the game right in the promise stage, then you will get to what is called the momentum stage. And this momentum stage is a make or break stage. The best way to define this stage is that if you are doing solid work, you are going to start attracting solid opportunities, whether that be from the company or in general from the industry. This is also a stage where you can start to get headhunted. So, it's a very, very critical stage. And I call it a make or break stage because not everybody will cross this stage. A lot of people, unfortunately, will stay stuck in this stage. And some, even more unfortunately, will land up ending their careers in this stage. But if you've started to build the right reputation, if you have the right character there in the way that you manage your work ethic, in the way that you drive your projects through for results, then it can lead to a beautiful stage called the harvest stage. And that harvest stage is the fourth stage, and this is the beginning of your senior leadership journey. So as the name suggests, harvest, you are going to reap what you sow. And this is a stage that creates a lot of options for you. So you can start joining the boards of organizations. You can start a small side business. You can turn into an entrepreneur. You can join industry bodies. And of course, you can even continue your employment journey. So, in this stage, your people skills are fairly polished, and your industry knowledge, your domain expertise is also fairly significant. So it is really the beginning of your senior leadership journey. And if you play the game right here, you will get into the fifth stage, which is called the encore stage. Encore is a French word, and it means that grand final performance. This is the opportunity that you will have in your career to paint your professional masterpiece. Sundar Pichai is a great example of somebody who at a fairly young age is in a very promising encore, as the CEO of Alphabet, one of the largest technology companies in the world. So that is an amazing stage, because that is the stage where you're heading a division, you're in a C-level role, or you're very well the CEO or the leader, the managing director of an organization. And what you do in this stage is what is going to become an example. So this is the stage where what you do is what you will be remembered for. And then you enter the sixth stage, which is the legacy stage, which is actually cementing what you are actually remembered for. So, people like Narayan Murthy or Ratan Tata or, Jeff Bezos or, Indra Nui, any of these examples you look at, they have some very powerful business legacies, Steve Jobs and, so on and so forth, because they became that shining beacon, that example that serves as a tremendous inspiration for so many. So these are the 6 stages of a typical career, and there are different traps and different solutions associated with these stages, and there is no preordained timeline based on which you can go through the stages. You cannot skip any of these stages, but you can actually accelerate your journey through a stage, and that is where when you engage with the right coach, somebody who has, or the right mentors, or an inner circle of people who can guide you. These people have successfully walked that journey before you. So, they can guide you with regard to what is coming up, what are the problems that will come up, and what are the opportunities that will come up, and how to traverse your way through that landscape. So, I would say that building a successful career in engineering requires recognizing all of this and playing the game from a place of information smartly.
That's great. The 6 stages really elaborate and express everybody's career to that fact. But specific to engineering, with so much competition in the field, we are a country of engineering talent, from the IITs to the software industry being one of the largest exports today. With that in mind, what are your three most important pieces of advice for engineers so they achieve careers of distinction?
Well, that's an excellent question, Aparna. I will tell you that if I was to give only three pieces of advice, I would say one is it's two pieces together and then one third one. So I will start with these two professional superpowers. And it's very important to develop these. And I think I was alluding to that earlier as well. The first one is learn how to build high performance teams. See, we don't do anything alone. Okay. And the mark of great leadership is understanding how to bring people together behind a common cause. So, learning how to identify the right talent, learning how to hire them and bring them on board, learning how to groom them into the culture of the organization, learning how to train them for the job, because a field like engineering or technology is moving very, very fast. And then learning how to help them grow their careers and also be able to retain them. So this is a professional superpower that engineers must have, like most other professionals must develop, because the ability to write great software and managing someone else who writes great software, these are two entirely different skills. So again, a certain amount of personal awareness and personal development must have taken place. For example, I think one of the biggest problems in the corporate world today is that there are too many people in positions of leadership that don't really have the leadership qualities. So, if you look at communication, which is a necessary aspect for every function and every company and job and sector of the economy, the majority of communication issues occur not because of what is being said, but the manner in which it is being stated. When you land up insulting or embarrassing a junior or a subordinate, their ears are going to get shut, right? Whatever you have to say is going to go right above their head. So the most difficult of things can be explained respectfully and politely, and I think that is one of the biggest problems in the corporate world today, where when people have an extensive workload, when they are under pressure, they are facing deadlines, they land up becoming short with people, and it's an immediate reflection of that individual's patience and maturity. So, it's very important to have that understanding how you're going to groom and build high performance teams. Because when you work on a team, you're not allowed to say things like, I told you so, or, you made a mistake. It doesn't matter who made the mistake. When you work on a team, you all start looking for the solution together. And that requires having a healthy ego. So that's one area that I would address. And that's one piece of feedback that I would offer engineers, that, learn how to build and lead high performance teams. The second area that I would you talk about, and I pointed to this a little earlier as well, is that Understand how your work is connected to the financial statements of the company. Okay, measure and quantify your work, because when you are working on the right activities, then the ROI that you will be able to create for the organization is going to be at its maximum. And if you look at something like the 20-80 rule, which a lot of people are familiar with, Pareto's principle, 20% of your work is going to generate 80% of the impact, and then 80% of your work generates only 20% of the impact. It's very important to identify what that 20% is for you, because that is something you cannot delegate to the team or outsource to a third party. That is something you have to master yourself. So it's very important to have that. And that 20% should be something that is connected to those levers on the financial statements, the balance sheet and the P&L statement, the cash flow statement, so that you understand that what you're working on is going to create this kind of a positive impact, or this kind of a cost efficiency it's going to bring about. So I would say these are two professional superpowers. And when engineers start understanding this, when they start understanding the financial implications of how their workload is contributing to the overall picture, they differentiate themselves. They are able to market themselves better. They make it easier for employers to understand the value that they represent. And when you understand your own value and know how to translate it into personal worth, that is where you really begin to stand out as a candidate. So those are the two pieces of advice that I would give. The third one that I would talk about is, please understand the power of feedback. Feedback is not easy to take, but it is the only thing that is going to allow you to reinvent yourself, to be able to solve unfair situations of increasing complexity. And to be able to take feedback, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's not easy to do. It's very easy to say, and it's very easy to understand in a podcast like setting or a live stream setting like this, but it's not easy to apply, because you see, in settings like this, the lesson comes first and the test comes later. But in life, in your job, the test is going to come first and the lesson is going to be delivered afterwards. So, it's very important to understand the true value of feedback, because it is an unfair world. Let's not live under the fallacy or live with the naivety that it is a fair world. The world is going to treat you fairly. Bad things can happen to good people, and good things can happen to bad people. So many people have died in wars that were innocent, that had nothing to do with the cause of the mission or whatever that war was about. So, you know, uh, I think it's very important to be able to take that feedback, really listen and understand what that person is trying to communicate. And it becomes easier when the person really has leadership qualities and knows how to communicate. Because if they can communicate in an angry tone or an upset tone, then the essence of the message is lost. So the person giving the feedback has to have those qualities to make it more effective. But even if they don't, at the end of the day, the career is yours. It is your responsibility. So even if they've delivered it in a less than appropriate tone, you need to develop your listening skills to understand what the value of that feedback was, because that is what is going to allow you to reinvent yourself for the next level of life. And I find that people don't do this because the problem with this personal development is that it is outside of your direct experience. It is very easy to understand this intellectually, but it is very difficult to feel what you will feel when you actually go through the experience. So, if you have climbed a small hill, you know that in climbing a small hill, your knees could hurt, you will be out of breath, you will be sweating. But, that is also true when you go and climb Mount Everest. But when you actually climb Mount Everest and you're, facing temperatures that are sub-zero and, above 26,000 feet, your body is eating its own organs, your lungs are filling up with fluid, you're in what is known as the death zone. There is no second-hand way to understand how you will act in that situation. You can't experience it vicariously. And but this is an ability that can be developed, because Life is too short to experience everything yourself, and therefore, developing this ability is very, very critical. And because it is uncomfortable, the mind wants to push it away. You want to avoid it, you want to resent it, you want to reject it. So the third, piece of advice I would give is, please understand how to take feedback, even if it is delivered in a less than appropriate manner, because at the end of the day, those are the things that you will look back at in life, and realize that these were the things that benefited you and helped you grow.
That's really great. So I think my biggest takeaway from that is that one has to be quite objective when it comes to their own career. As a subset to my last point and question, could you help with some ways to be more and more objective about the feedback one receives in a professional setting, and if there's any ways to cope with that in a efficient manner? Because after all, career is a really personal choice. So to be objective about it is very difficult for everybody. So, are there some coping mechanisms for engineers, people in professional positions who building their careers to be more objective about the feedback they receive?
One has to understand that the road to career development is paved with personal development. And any area of your life that you do not proactively empower, that area of your life will overpower your life. So it is very important to start to become mindful. Mindfulness is the ability to be able to step outside of yourself and notice the thoughts that are crossing your mind, the emotions that are coming up. So if there is an emotion that is triggering you in a negative way, and you are someone who is mindful, then you will be able to notice that emotion come up almost in slow motion. And when you are mindful, you develop and strengthen this muscle that allows you to observe that occurrence as a third party, as an objective and neutral third party. So you will be able to make the distinction between, is it an emotion that I should associate with? Is it a thought that I should associate with? Or is it a thought that I should let pass? Because, a stitch in time saves nine. What is not necessary to say, it is very necessary that you don't say it, because your success will not only depend on what you say, but it will also depend on what you don't say, right? So developing that mindfulness, and that comes through practices like meditation. If you look at billionaires in the world, one common practice, there are four common practices, but for the sake of time here, the one common practice that most of them have is meditation. And it is something that is so connected to our culture. We gave birth to a practice like meditation. So it's very important to understand the value that that brings to your life, and to be able to use it so that you can start becoming more calm and more mindful, and be able to observe these situations and understand, should I associate with that thought, or should I not associate with that thought? If it's going to improve the situation, then absolutely, please go ahead and associate with it. But if it is something that is going to damage the situation, and you don't have that emotional intelligence, and you're reacting instead of responding, then you're going to remain stuck in those behaviors that are self-sabotaging. See, we all have these four sides to our personality. We have a side of behaviors that we are capable of, that we recognize, and the world also recognizes. That is what is known as your open self. Then we have a blind self, and that blind self is behaviors that we are capable of, that the world can clearly see, but we cannot see. And that is where all of these self-sabotaging behaviors live. All of your limiting beliefs, all of that lives in there. And because you can't see it, it's very hard to diagnose. Then there is a third side to your personality, which is your hidden self. And these are things that you know about yourself, but you hide from the world. You don't want the world to know these things, right? So all of the trauma, or the emotional scarring, or torture, or physical abuse, or any things like that you have been through, all of that lives in there, and it has to be processed. You cannot just disconnect from all of that. You have to truly process it, because if you disconnect from it, then it becomes a repressed emotion, and that will limit the scale at which you will be able to play your career and your life. And then there is a fourth side to you as well, which is your unknown self. So there are good things and bad things that live in that unknown self, because you don't know about these things and neither does the world. So when I work with a career professional, I take them through all of this so that they can start becoming that best leadership version of themselves. There is a version of every individual that is capable of being a millionaire, that is capable of having the professional fulfillment, the work life harmony, the growth opportunities that we all desire and deserve. But it is a journey, and it is truly a process where a tremendous amount of honesty is required and a tremendous amount of introspection is required. So, these would be some of the mechanisms that people should focus on, because the road to career development is absolutely paved with personal development.
That's very true. That's very true. I think understanding the smaller stuff has been great, but I think I'd like to take the conversation to the larger picture as well. So, since India is on the rise and there's newer sectors like capital goods, infrastructure, real estate, where engineers have found jobs, they still remain a little volatile. So, what in your opinion, what is the future of engineering, the career looking like at this point in time? What do you think the next decade is going to be for engineers?
That's wow. That's a great question, Aparna. I'll tell you. Of course, with the advent of generative AI, organizations have started creating a position like chief AI officer. Before this, you had the chief digital officer, which was another new senior leadership position that had come up. I think the future for engineering is very bright, and I'll tell you why. See, first and foremost, what one needs to understand is, I think what is happening here in India right now is an unprecedented transformation. That I don't think the history of the free world has noticed. I think this transformation is happening economically, it is happening socially, and it is happening politically. So, if you look at India since independence, almost $1 trillion worth of foreign direct investment has flowed into India since 1947, since independence. 60% of that number has happened in the last 8 years. That's a massive number. And it has happened across 31 states and union territories, across 61 industries. So this is really a transformation that is happening at the grassroots level. Okay. Before the pandemic, we were the fastest growing large economy in the world. And post the pandemic, we are still the fastest growing large economy in the world. In the last, I would say, about 96 months, we have gone from being the 11th largest economy to the 5th largest economy. We've left behind Russia and Brazil and Italy and France and most recently the UK. And the run rate at which we are proceeding, by the end of this year, 2023, or by early 2024, we will overtake Germany, because Germany is going through a recession at the moment. And then there are three major world economies in front of us. We have Japan, we have China, and we have the United States. And in terms of these three players, Japan is going through a population crisis, as is China. Both of these countries are going to face severe population crises. In addition to that, China is also facing a lot of debt. More than half of their states, their provinces, are in debt to their central government. Very much like the situation that we saw with Sri Lanka or Pakistan recently. And then, of course, you have the big hitter, the big 800-pound gorilla, which is the United States. But they are growing at a very slow pace because the cost of economics, the cost of production there is significantly higher. That is why they went to countries like countries in Asia in the first place, because the cost of production was lower. So they have lost that manufacturing edge. And the only way for them to grow is to continue to grow through things like defense and wars. And that's a very unfortunate dynamic that they are trapped in. And they've done it to themselves from that perspective. But that said, I think in the next 20 to 30 years, we truly have a shot at becoming the number one economy in the world. But that's easier said than done, because we have to take amazing decisions for a very long period of time. because success is not the outcome of a single decision. See, 3 new Indians join the internet every minute. 2 of them are from India's villages. Um, 30 Indians move to a urban city every 10 minutes. We are creating the equivalent of a US population base every decade. In 2021, we were creating a unicorn every 29 days. In 2022, we are creating a unicorn every 9 days. So the run rate at which we are going, we consume more data today than the US and China combined. We are the number one in the world for digital transactions, and the second country, being China, is not even half of the amount of digital transactions that are taking place in India today. So with our G20 presidency, and we just hosting world leaders from across the planet, India is really on the rise and the move. And all of these people, we have 1 billion people at the age of 35 or below. We're going to be the largest workforce in the world. We're also the youngest workforce in the world. And 20% of the global workforce and 21% of the global middle class is going to be represented by Indians. 207 some countries on the planet, and one country represents almost 1/5. So that's disproportionately in our favor. And we are going to stay the youngest workforce till 2070, foreseeably. So all of these people, they are going to need housing, they are going to need infrastructure, they are going to need education, they are going to need jobs, they are going to need products, they are going to need services. I think the future for India and the future for engineering is incredibly bright. And like I said, it's not just the economics; it's also the social elements of this, this question that you have asked, and also the political elements. Because today we are beginning to realize it's not so much about which political party you follow; it's more about Indian citizens coming to understand that good economics has to be the heart of good politics. We are ready to make our presence felt on the global stage. Chandrayaan and the Oscars that we're winning. And I mean, it's happening almost everywhere. So it is an amazing time to be an Indian. And I'm a very, very proud Indian. I think I've had the opportunity of having a global career where I built the first part of my career abroad. And I've had the opportunity to come back to India. And for the last, 10 plus years, I've been in the country, and I've, led a family business and now also a career coaching enterprise. It's just a phenomenal time. I think today the Indian dream is one of the most powerful socio-economic constructs out there. And this is the reason that I also came back, and I also chose to serve people, my countrymen, my brothers and sisters in India, because we are going through that phase where we can truly be the Sone ki Chidiya again. So that's the promised land, and it's a very exciting time, including for engineers.
That's great. That's great. Another question that actually came to mind while we were just speaking was that it's such a technical field. Engineering is such a technical field and requires constant upskilling. So I know somebody who's at the age of 37, having worked for Adobe, Facebook, now is feeling quite dated. So how should engineers think about upscaling themselves? Should they focus on depth and become specialists, or should they focus on breadth and become generalists? This is a burning question, and I've seen a lot of engineers in their mid 30s, or at, as you may say, third or fourth stage of their career ask this question. So would love your expertise on this.
See, there is no one preordained path. But that said, if I was to draw some patterns from having observed lakhs of careers, I will tell you that your initial success is going to be in being a specialist. In the early stages of your career, the more you can specialize, the more complicated problems you can solve deeper in that vertical, the more money you will make and the more successful you will be, the more promotions you will earn. But after a certain point in your career, your ability to relate with people and solve general problems, no matter what problem has shown up, that is going to take you to the very top. So I think there is a lot that needs to be understood there, because there was a time where, if you look at the early 2000s, the world was paying for that level of specialist knowledge, right? But today, I think it has the curve has shifted again. So now to be a very powerful generalist represents greater value, but that happens more in the senior stages of your career. So initially, go very deep in whatever you are doing in the first 2 to 3 stages of your career. Go very, very deep, master that particular area, and then start to give yourself an understanding that is cross-functional, that goes across multiple functions. And that is something that I work with a lot of people in different functions on as well, because it helps them take charge of their own promotion. So instead of waiting on the organization to promote them, which is a vertical promotion, so you're going from a team leader to a senior software engineer or a principal architect or whatever it may be. That's like a vertical promotion, and that is dependent on your performance appraisal. It's dependent on your boss, your organization, the markets, how the company has done. But if you want to take more charge of your own career, then you also have to understand the concept of horizontal promotions, which are much more in your control. And we teach that methodology in how to be able to break free of the performance appraisal, and take control of your career. And that is where that ability to be a superpowered generalist really comes into play. The other thing that a lot of people do, and you mentioned it in your question as well, people working for big companies like the Facebooks and the Googles and the Amazons. We've also seen recently that a lot of these companies have gone through major layoffs, right? Which kind of raises this question, what should I do? Should I be more of a specialist or more of a generalist? See, there is more supply than there is demand in certain areas within the technology and engineering sector. Like you said, we are a country that gives birth to the most number of engineers. So, I think what needs to be understood here is, if you're joining some of these larger companies that can offer wonderful careers, do also understand these positions are highly replaceable. Don't just go for the glitter because of the shiny logo of these big companies, because they are very structured jobs, and the learning in them is going to be not as much as if you join a mid-size or a smaller company, because those roles will be much more hands-on. You might even have the opportunity to work directly with the promoter in such companies, but you won't get the opportunity to work with a Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook as an engineer coming out of coming out of college in India, or even at the mid-level. There is a defined hierarchy there in those organizations. I think what needs to be understood there is, how can you be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, own more of that pond with the integrity and the ethical values in place, so that you can create greater impact. You're not looking to join the best run company. You're looking to join the company where your strengths, your talents, your qualities, your experiences, your education, your knowledge can have the greatest impact. So that is the perspective with which I would answer that question.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense, because a lot of startups are really small. So engineers that join a startup that's a team of say 10 to 20 people would have a lot more face time with the founder, would really understand in that case how their work is directly impacting the financial statements as well. So a lot of the
Absolutely.
learning happens.
And it's great to have that, because when you're when we have a fantastic startup ecosystem. It's not perfect. There are many companies playing the valuation game as well, which I don't think is correct. But there are profitable startups and bootstrap startups that have done miraculously well. But again, when you join a company at that early stage, or even at the mid stage where a second scale up is possible, your learning is going to be much deeper. That said, you also have to understand, are you the type of individual that is appropriate for a startup? Or do you prefer a calm and composed environment? Because everybody is a unique individual, and you have to understand, you can't be a bull in a china shop, right? So the idea is to understand who you are, and what environment you will fit well into, what environment will value you. So if you can deal with the craziness or the chaos of a company, that is a startup, or even a turnaround, or even a company that is going through accelerated growth, and not everybody is cut out for that. So it's important to have that self-awareness. When you come from that space of reflection, you will be much more strategic and systematic in how you will build your career journey.
Great, that makes a lot of sense. Truly, your insights have been invaluable to the discussion today. So, before we go into a short Q&A with attendees of this webinar, would you like to speak to any of the points that we probably didn't mention, or specifically for engineers who are on the look for another job, maybe early in their career or maybe 5, 6 years in? If you had something specific to mention for them, whether that's to do with upskilling, whether to improve soft skills, that'd be really helpful.
No, I think we covered a broad spectrum of topics. Those were some wonderful questions that you posed. In general, what I would say in terms of my closing comments here is that please understand, teachers and students are connected by an unbroken link of chain. Because every teacher was once a student, every master was at some point a disaster. See, the ability to take good decisions comes from experience, and experience itself comes from taking bad decisions, right? So it's important to understand that we're on the same journey, albeit at two different points. The entire world, in my humble opinion, has one single problem, and that problem is we all need to get out of our own way. We are all works in progress that sometimes unfortunately think that we are finished products. We have to be lifelong learners because this journey truly never ends, right? And when we're open to that, that is where we have gears of performance within us that we don't realize that we can truly tap into and create phenomenal success. So my closing bit piece of advice would be this: let's make a conscious effort to get out of our own way and realize the true potential that we all have as Indians, as engineers, and as people. One world, one family, Vasudev Kutumbakam, which was just emphasized so massively, in the G20 summit that Prime Minister Modi held. I truly believe in that, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal journey ahead.
Thank you so much. I think because of time limitations, I'd be only able to do two questions. So one of them is an attendee asking how to get back into the job market after having a career gap of 3 years. I think this applies to any career gap, but this specific question, and a lot of people have this question, so we'd love your 2 cents on that.
Uh, Whoever is asking this question, it's a very pertinent question, and I want to first tell them I can completely understand how you feel. You are not alone. This is a major pain point that a lot of people experience. Um, See, what you need to understand is that unfortunately, a lot of hiring managers and a lot of recruiters, HR departments will look at this negatively, right? This should have not happened to you, but that is the nature of life. Problems don't ask for your permission before they show up in your life, right? So these things do happen. The idea here is to become a compelling candidate, and when you do the right type of research on the organization, then you can make a better assessment of how your skills, your talents, your experiences, your knowledge, all of that lines up with solving the problems that the company is experiencing and the opportunities that are confronting them. And then when you make a conscious effort to learn about the culture of the company so that you can make an educated decision with regard to will you fit in this culture or not, when you do that, then you build what is called a compelling value proposition. So the methodology that I use is, it helps you shift your value from just being based in your career history to also being based, largely in this value proposition that you will engineer. All right, and that is what helps you break through such a limitation. Because otherwise what will happen is you will keep competing with people who don't have this problem and not even get selected in the majority of the applications that you send out, and that will only lower your confidence, and your ability to take meaningful action will only continue to decrease, and it will become easier for you to give up on your own self. So there are answers to these problems, and you need to understand how to approach the job search and job application journey today, because there are people who have walked it successfully through these problems, and there are answers available, but it's not overnight and it's not magic. It has to be engaged with and it has to be done right.
That's fantastic. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you so much for your invaluable insights, and we're so thankful for your time today, Savan. Uh, if there were any other questions, I will share them with you offline, and we'll probably share them across. But thank you so much. Really
I'll
appreciate
be
it.
happy to take those questions. And for your audience, if they want to come and attend my masterclass, I'm sure you can put the link in the description and share with them. I have a short, a couple hour masterclass where I talk about all of these things. And if people are interested, very happy to have them there because they associate with a wonderful organization like Naukri.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Parna. It was lovely to be here with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bye.